Theresa May has announced that the EU has accepted her political declaration on the future relationship between the EU and the UK, but the document contains plenty of surprises. Theresa May has confirmed that the political declaration on the future relationship between the UK and the EU has finally been agreed in principle with the EU, which means we can go forward. And on Sunday, there'll be a summit in Brussels where they will accept the withdrawal agreement, the political declaration. They'll move forward and head towards the next step, which is getting Parliament to vote on the withdrawal agreement. And there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about today. First off, I want to talk about the difference between the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration. But then I want to go into the political declaration, explain what it is, and go through a few things that you can find in the document, which has been leaked and is available publicly online. Take a look at what's going in there, because there's a few surprises, or maybe not surprises, that kind of give away what Theresa May is trying to do. So first off, let's look at the difference between the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration. Now, the withdrawal agreement is what she's been planning all this time. It's 585 pages long, so pretty massive, and it explains how Britain will exit the European Union. It's just the process of us leaving. It includes the backstop, which was originally a Northern Ireland backstop whereby Northern Ireland would remain in the customs union, but now it's a whole UK backstop whereby the whole of the UK remains in the customs union, or a single customs territory, same thing, until a specified date in which the transition period of us leaving ends. So Theresa May says we're going to leave in March technically, but really we're not going to leave until the transition period ends. And we eventually leave that customs union, if we leave it at all. Now, the political declaration on the future relationship between the EU and the UK is a very different document. Up until yesterday, it was only 7 pages long. It was very vague. But Theresa May's been over in Brussels hashing out the details. Negotiators have been working overnight, and that document is now 26 pages long. And it's been hashed out because, well, Angela Merkel threatened to pull the plug on the summit that's happening on Sunday. And the summit is when the UK, the rest of the EU, all agree on this deal and say, okay, this is the withdrawal agreement. Now you can take it to the House of Commons in the UK and vote on it. So there's the difference. The political declaration sets out what happens after we leave the European Union. But here's the thing, within the withdrawal agreement and the text, it says that the transition period is between 2020 and 2022 potentially. But it also allows for the UK and the EU to decide to, postpone it. It says within the document that the transition period can be extended for one time for an unspecified amount of time, which means that in the document, it famously says until 20XX. So rest assured, guys, we're going to leave sometime before 2100. So that's where we are. The political declaration is now sort of filled out a bit more and explains the parameters of what it's going to be like after we leave the EU following 2020, 2022, whenever it is. But the thing is, it's only explains the parameters. It doesn't fill in any of the details, which means that actually we've still got years of negotiations ahead of us, because who knows what the details are going to be like. But these parameters give us an idea of what they plan to negotiate on. And when you look at what these parameters are, it really shows that Theresa May is trying to, she's certainly not respecting the result of the referendum, and she's trying to ensure that we stay in the European Union as much as possible. She gave a speech outside Number 10 today where she says about last night in Brussels. She had a good detailed discussion with the President Juncker. They worked all night. They've updated the cabinet. She made a statement later on in the afternoon to Parliament. And back before she went back into Downing Street after she made this speech, she insisted that this was the right deal for the UK and it delivers on the results of the referendum, as she always says, but of course it's not true. And we can see this by looking at 3 things that I've outlined in this document. So number 1, in Objectives and Principles, paragraph 19, it says this: the parties recall their determination to replace the backstop solution on Northern Ireland by a subsequent agreement that establishes alternative arrangements for ensuring the absence of a hard border on the island of Ireland on a permanent footing. So this is a new addition to that draft. It was added over the last couple of days, and it shows the Prime Minister's commitment to avoiding a hard border in Northern Ireland, and it also sort of suggests that she's trying to ensure that there's no customs barrier down the Irish Sea. And with the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, abstaining in a budget vote the other day, really firing warning shots to the Prime Minister that they don't like this deal and that they could scupper her confidence and supply agreement. It shows to me that the Prime Minister is clearly trying to ensure it's going to keep them on board, but I don't think that's going to happen. More concerningly, though, is tariffs, paragraph 23, which reads, "The economic partnership should ensure no tariffs, fees, charges of quantitative restrictions across all sectors with ambitious customs agreements that, in line with the party's objectives and principles above, build and improve on the single customs territory provided for in the Withdrawal Agreement, which obviates the need for checks on rules of origin." Now, this one was easy to miss, but it's the bit where it says build and improve that's important, because there appears to be no intention of agreeing on a free trade deal in the future. No, if you read this, it says they want to build and improve on the single customs territory provided for within the Withdrawal Agreement. Remember, this is the political declaration on the future relationship between the UK and the EU. And they're not saying let's set a free trade deal. They're saying let's build on the customs territory, the single customs territory that we're going to be locked into. So during that transition period, we'll be in the customs union, bound by EU laws, regulations, can't set our own trade deals because we're bound by those regulations. And to make things worse, we don't have a say in it because we've left the European Union. So we just have to take their word for it, take their rules and bow down and say, fine, yes sir, no sir. And then after we leave the European Union properly in 2020, 2022, 2029, we're going to be building and improving on this customs territory. We're not going to have any say in it. So really, there's no change here. This is a huge betrayal. And it's so easy to miss, but I'm glad I caught that. Now, thirdly, in dispute settlement, paragraph 134, it says, should a dispute raise a question of interpretation of union law, which may also be indicated by either party, the arbitration panel should refer the question to the CJEU as the sole arbiter of union law for a binding ruling. We've been promised time and time again that there will be no longer any jurisdiction for the European Court of Justice, but this little paragraph suggests completely otherwise. There will be instances clearly where the European Court of Justice has sole say over matters of interpretation of law that affect both the UK and the EU. So we may interpret it one way. They might just decide that one day they interpret it a completely different way, and the ECJ has total control over that. So really, I mean, these three issues here, by the way, there's another one on fishing that I didn't want to go into fully, but basically it says that there's going to be negotiations on fishing rights, which has caused, I think, Ross Thompson MP, a Scottish MP, to call that into question and say, well, are we going to give away our fishing rights? Which is an interesting question, but really we've got years of negotiations ahead of us, so let's see how that goes. But these three in particular, it shows really that the conniving manner of the Prime Minister, slip a bit in here about Northern Ireland and maybe we'll get the DUP back on board. And then the tariffs issue, the economic partnership, the customs union, and then dispute settlement with the European Court of Justice. This isn't Brexit. So remember, guys, it's not just the withdrawal agreement. We're going to be voting on that in Parliament, but it's this political declaration. Read through it yourself. It's only about 26 pages. This shows what they plan after the Brexit withdrawal process, which is even worse, if you can imagine such a thing. If you want to see more from me and the rest of the Rebel team, be sure to download the brand new app from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.